Steinhoff International is a global investment company with interests in the household goods sector and related industries. It's grown rapidly in recent years to a market cap of 45 billion rand on a price-to-earnings ratio of 8. Its South African assets are now held via JD Group and Cap International. It has major interests in furniture manufacture and retail in Europe, especially the Conforama brand in France, Spain and Italy. Steinhoff pays no dividends. I'm going to throw it to Chris first on Steinhoff. Do you like their recent activity? Obviously, we've got the breakdown there in terms of the introduction.
I love it. I spent quite a bit of time with them at the last presentation with Marcus Jooste and Sean Summers. You know, he used to run Pick and Pay here and now runs the British operations for Steinhoff. And we gained a valuable insight into what's going on in many other parts of the business in Steinhoff. This is a hybrid company. In the sense that it's a manufacturer and it's a retailer, should I say, both in this country and, as you say, in parts of Europe and in the UK. And you know, a lot of investors don't, in my opinion, take the time to really try and understand this thing properly, because it's quite a complex thing. It's got a lot of moving parts, as many people would say. So it's difficult sometimes to try and put a decent valuation on the thing. It's had a very good track record for many, many years ever since listing, and yet the market doesn't seem to want to give it a decent rating. It's got a very low tax rate. Some people have said, is this sustainable? Is it not sustainable? And other people who have been less complimentary to it have said, well, this is just a trademark company, and how do you value these trademarks? So, you know, it's got a certain amount of bad, I wouldn't say bad publicity, but bad perceptions around it, and I think that's what's probably kept the rating down. Well,
let's look at what's happening on a share price perspective here. Paul, you can talk us through that detail, can't you?
Well, you know, this is a high beta stock. In other words, it does well when things are going well, but unfortunately it does rather badly. So here it falls right down to 9 Rand in the financial crisis.
And but then that's like any other stock in the South African universe.
Yeah, but this one is quite accentuated, and none of the sort of retailers don't look as bad as this, and they don't have that kind of slump. But it's because, as Chris says, these guys are very entrepreneurial. Marcus Jooste, Klaus Dahn, Bruno Steinhoff, the three of them have basically put this thing together. Together with Vestact Asset Management and the PIC, they control enough votes in the board that they can basically do what they like. And what they like is to, you know, restructure, reorganize. The Conforama deal, very big transaction, totally changed the dynamics of the company. One of the biggest
players in the furniture space. Isn't it second only to IKEA?
I was going to say only IKEA is bigger when it comes to Europe. That's quite correct.
And it's a great brand. I mean, they are big mega stores. They've got a very good retail presence online. They have a very good price point. So this is not, you know, high-end luxury goods type retail in Europe. This is working families buying fridges and lounge suites, and it's a price-sensitive industry. They've got global sourcing from China as well as from Eastern Europe, which is, you know, Bruno Steinhoff's original model. So if you think that Europe is going down the tubes, this is not a stock to look for. But on the other hand, if you think Europe is going to be fine and Europe is going to recover its former glory, then this one is an interesting stock.
On that note, do you think that Europe is going down the tubes, or is it going to recover former glory? Certainly
not the countries into which Steinhoff sells its good. I mean, Germany is one of its biggest areas, for example, and I certainly don't think Germany is going down the tube, that's for sure. If you look at the UK, it's a lower end of the market. You know, it's very predominantly the kind of mainstream market. Bedding, I think they're number 2 in the bedding sector. You know, people still got to sleep, and they still got to sit down, this type of thing. So we're not talking about something that's particularly esoteric. So I really don't have too many problems in terms of the sustainability of this one at all.
Exactly. People have still got to sit down, come good or bad economic environments, and sleep. I think that's a very fair point.
Look, they funded the purchase of Conforama, which, if I'm correct, is about 9 or 10 billion rand, through a pref issue and a bond issue, which is dated out to 2018. So they managed to restructure in a rather tricky environment, and they're kind of, you know, rolling this thing. But remember, this is a group with 20 billion of debt vis-a-vis its market cap of about 45. They've got a low tax rate, which tells you there's some jiggery pokery going on there. Marcus himself is always fighting with the receiver. So, you know, they are guys that like to do things their own way, and that sometimes is reflected in the market with slightly less confidence than would be the case if you were fairly boring and had what looked like
higher
good
risk,
corporate governance.
greater reward. Bottom line, Sean Summers, let's talk about the fact that he's running that international operation, and of course we'll all know him from Pick n Pay fame, and he was a well-liked CEO and well-respected CEO in the South African space.
Yes, and look, there's an interesting story which we don't have time to go into in this program to go into how he ended up in Steinhoff, but he's lent his very considerable retailing expertise to this thing. And let's not forget at Pick n Pay, he was part of that whole hypermarket side of Pick n Pay. So he understands general merchandising as well. He understands the furniture side too. So we had a long chat with him, and he said it's very, very tough there. Make no mistake, not getting any easier. But a lot of the things they've done, particularly on the innovation side, have paid off dramatically well.
Another thing I want to point out is that Marcus himself sweats the detail. He's not the kind of guy to sit in the corporate head office and do nothing. His entire schedule is mapped out for the whole year. He's visiting all of these operations. And just because they've now focused on Europe, don't think for a minute the South African assets, which they've shoved into CAP, which is the furniture manufacture stuff and all of the PG Bison assets, or the retail assets that came with Unitrons and so on that have now gone into JD, that he's like, hands off. They've got 50% of both, and he's visiting all of the plants. He's asking them the hard questions about their accounts. So I think he's a very talented guy. The only thing is they sail quite close to the wind, and you know what that means, potentially at times of hardship. You're going to see it go down.
So be aware that you could be in for a roller coaster ride with the stock, but potentially the upside is there for you. Hot or not on Steinhoff?
Very hot indeed. I like this one.
Hot or not on Steinhoff, Mr. Theron?
Every time I look at it, it gets cheaper. I think it's flirting with the sort of 24 Rand level, but yeah, I think it's hot too for people with the right appetite.